Welcome back to the MOOC course on research writing. My name is Aradhana Malik and I am helping you with this course. And in the previous lecture we discussed outlining. We discussed what an outline is and how do you create an outline, and we discussed various things related to an outline. Okay, so we've been talking about drafting. We are talking about writing a lot of things about, or writing the literature review. We are talking about how you get things together and how you combine everything together. Now, in this particular session, what we will do is we'll wrap up the argument about literature review. We'll talk about how you tie the argument together and how you support your claims. We've talked about various aspects related to the literature review. So how do you get everything together and how do you actually start writing? So let's see what that is. Okay, how do you organize an argument? You have two broad methods of organizing an argument. You have the classical system and you have the Toulmin system. So what are these two methods? The first method is the classical system, which includes an introduction. You write an introduction, you write the background, which is your literature survey, the lines of argument, you survey whatever has been done in the past. So you introduce the reader to the concept that you're talking about. Then you discuss the background. What has led you to coming up with this idea? Okay, so you talk about the background. Then you discuss the lines of argument. You discuss why you believe what you believe to be true. You also consider alternative arguments. You also consider opposing points of view. You also get those together and you say, despite these arguments which are clearly in opposition to or alternatives to what I believe to be true, I still want to pursue my line of argument and or my line of reasoning. And then you conclude and you say this is what it is. So you might end with the identification of a gap in the literature, in the knowledge base. You might end up with an idea or a way to pursue or to build on the knowledge that already exists. When you conduct research, it's not always about finding a gap in the knowledge base. It's also about finding new leads that can help you build knowledge based on whatever it is that you're trying to, or whatever it is that has already been done before. So that's what you do in the classical system, and this is about writing. Okay, now in the introduction you gain the reader's attention and interest. You begin with a topical sentence that is clearly ties in with the title of your work. So when you start writing, you have to have a title. Now I'll tell you a very interesting story. Today, just maybe an hour ago, my student and I finished writing a paper that we were going to submit to a journal, and we started uploading it. We've been working on this paper for about 6 months. Extensive research, extensive work, and both of us have done lots of work before this. And when we started uploading this paper, the first thing we realized was that we did not have a title. We did not. We had a broad idea, we modified the title, and somewhere along the way we lost track of what the title should be. The work took a shape, a life of its own, and eventually transformed into something meaningful, something that we thought was significant enough to be sent for publication. Now, something like this can happen to you if you're really involved in your work. Something like that can happen to you as well. It's not unheard of. The title helps you stay on track, but after a while you know the subject matter so well that you can actually feel it like another living organism in front of you. So you know the shape and size and the way it moves and the way it breathes, etc. Now we both laughed about it, and I said, okay, based on what we have today, what do you think the title should be? And we both came up with a title that fit what we had done along the way in the past several months. And that was very different from what we had started out with, but it is an iterative process. We did something, we went back, we checked, we got feedback, we went back, we checked, we did something, we went back. So, the whole process went through about 50 to 60 revisions, and finally we were ready to send it to a journal. So we both came up with a title that really described or that really highlighted what the paper was about, and that title came to us as we were submitting the paper to a journal, and that's absolutely fine, because at this point we know what this organism is all about. Okay, now and we cross checked the document to find out whether the first part, the introduction part of the document, really described what we were talking about, and we found that it did. So there was a very clear flow from the title into the introduction. That doesn't come in the first draft. I'm telling you, this paper that we are working on, that we just submitted today, has gone through about 50 drafts. Okay, so it comes, it's an iterative process. You go back, you check, you go back, you check, you revise, you do proofread, you argue, you discuss things, and then eventually something shapes up. So you have to grab the reader's attention or gain the reader's attention and interest. Then you establish your qualifications to write about a topic. Again, this varies from situation to situation. Okay, and we'll discuss more about this. Then you establish common ground with the readers. This is something that we were talking about in previous lectures. You also demonstrate fairness and equal treatment of both sides of the story, and then you state or imply your thesis and say, this is what I was intending to talk about. Now, in the background, you present any necessary background information, including pertinent personal narrative. Then what you do? So when we talk about the background in literature review, the background is of extreme importance. The background is of utmost importance. What you do in the background is that you find out who has talked about whatever it is that you were saying before you. Why did they say it? Why did they believe in whatever they believed in? Okay. So you say research writing should be made compulsory for research scholars. Let's just go with that thesis. Why do we say this? So you build on the background. In the past, research, we did not have so many journals, people published, there were stories. There was a time when I think I told you about baby biographies, which was the very first or one of the first accounts or methods of collecting information about developing children. So I studied child development for my master's. So baby biographies were nothing but notes made by parents about how their children progressed from day to day, especially from infancy to being a toddler to being into their early childhood and middle childhood and later childhood, and then went on to adolescence. And so people maintained descriptive records. Today my child was able to, or my son was able to hold on to the table and get up and stood up for maybe 2 or 3 seconds and then fell down and then giggled and then got up and then was able to stand for 3 or 4 minutes. And so several baby biographies were strung together, and then so that was one of the very first accounts of how child development was studied. Now when we talk about background, when we talk about, say, let's just take that example, or maybe the same example that we were dealing with earlier. Research writing should be made mandatory for, or should be taught in institutes of higher education to research scholars. So you provide the background as to why this is important, when there may be a line or two about how journals came to be, and how research writing differentiated from the way writing is done today. How did that develop into a separate method of writing, and why? So that could be a worthwhile exercise. And then you start differentiating, and then you see how it developed and how different journals adopted different formats and styles and methods, and how they communicated this to people, and then what was the impact of technology on research writing. And then you come up with why it is required for research scholars to go through courses in research writing today. Okay, so you present any necessary background information, including pertinent personal narrative. Occasionally, again, this is not required for data based studies, it's not required for experimental studies, but for maybe more qualitative type of research, personal and personal narratives have significant value in the way you present your work. Okay, in the way you build your background. Then what do? Then you develop lines of argument, present good reasons, including logical and emotional appeals in support of your thesis. When you talk about research writing, it's not about emotional appeals, it's usually about logical appeals. You generally present reasons in order of importance. You demonstrate ways in which your argument may be in the reader's best interests. You may be knowing this, or this is how it adds to the existing knowledge base. So you present good reasons, you present logical reasons, you present reasons that are believable in support of whatever you are saying. Then you present them either in the order of importance, or if chronology helps you establish your importance, then presenting them in a chronological order would also help. And then you demonstrate ways and methods in which your argument may help the reader or may help the person evaluating your document believe that you really are building on the knowledge base that has already existed before. So you develop your lines of argument, then you consider alternative arguments, you examine alternative points of view, you note down advantages and disadvantages of alternative views, and you explain why one view is better than others. So you say, like I've been saying earlier also, you say, I believe, or this should be done, and this is the literature that backs it up, and this is the body of literature that opposes it, and I still I would still like to insist, you don't say I would, but you say it should still be believed that this line of reasoning holds more value or needs to be studied in this particular manner. So you explain the reasons for giving more importance to one view than the other. Okay, then you write your conclusion. What do you write in your conclusion? You summarize the argument if you choose to do so. Okay, so you might just summarize the argument and you say this is all there is to it, and now in legal terms I rest my case. So, and then you elaborate on the implications of your thesis. I believe this because this is how it can be used. We talked about some action coming out of whatever it is that you're proposing. Okay, so you elaborate on how it is important. In most types of research, in most papers, in most publications, it is mandatory for you to declare why a piece of research or why a body of research is important and how it will be applied to day-to-day life, or not really day-to-day life, but to further the creation or the building up, the development of the knowledge base. Make clear what you want the readers to think or do. So you clearly outline or describe what you want the readers to think or do. You tell them what it is what is the expected outcome, what are you expecting them to believe about the knowledge that you have created, and then you reinforce your credibility. So then you take the argument back, and then in and through what you present, your readers start believing in whatever you are saying. Okay. The second method of organizing your work is the Toulmin system. You make your claim. So a claim is a statement that is debatable or controversial. So you make your claim and you say that this is what I believe in, and you make sure that you state something that can have opposing points of view, that will help you build your credibility, that will help you justify your point. Qualify your claim if necessary, contextualize it, provide the context, provide the supporting information, and say within this context, within these limitations, within these boundaries, this is what I am trying to say. So going back to the same example, research scholars in autonomous institutes of higher education would benefit more, or are likely to benefit more through training in, or let's not talk about autonomous institutes of higher education, research scholars in say the engineering sciences are less likely to benefit from a formal course in research writing than are research scholars in the humanities or social sciences. So you qualify it and you're providing a comparison. So, or you say research scholars at the PhD level. Now people do masters by research also. Research scholars at the PhD level would benefit significantly if they were put through a formal course in research writing at the beginning of their doctoral training. So, right in the beginning they are given this training, and through the course of their dissertation or through the course of their research they produce papers, and so that is why you contextualize it. Not all research scholars at all stages would benefit from it, but if they are put through such a course, a rigorous course in research writing, right when they start their dissertations, they would benefit from it, which is the system that goes on here, which is the system that applies to students here at IIT Kharagpur. So, in the very first semester or at the most the second semester, they are put through this course, and it is a compulsory course, and they take it and they then use whatever they have learned and apply it to their lives as researchers. Okay. Present good reasons to support your claim. Explain the warrant, the underlying assumptions that connects your claim and your reasons. If the warrant is controversial, provide backing for it. I'll give you an example for it. Now, we say research scholars should go through a program, a formal program in research writing. The assumption is that research scholars are there because they are doing research and they intend to publish, they intend to produce, they intend to share the work, the new knowledge they have created with others in the field. So, research scholars should be put through or must go through formal training in research writing. Now, the underlying assumption here is that they intend to publish, they intend to share the knowledge they have created with others in the field, with others who can use it. And how do they share it? Again, the assumption is that they will share it in print through journal publications. That connects your claim and your reasons. If the warrant is controversial, provide backing for it. Provide additional grounds to support your claim. Facts, statistics, testimony, and the use of other logical, ethical, or emotional appeals. So, you give facts, you provide statistics, you provide testimony, you give reasons, and the use of other logical, ethical, or emotional appeals don't really work in research writing. However, you can provide facts and statistics and testimony and other logical arguments. Then you acknowledge and respond to possible counter arguments. Fairness. Find out what the counter arguments could be and respond to them. Say that an opposing view might suggest, or researchers have also suggested this, which is a complete counter argument to what I am saying, which is completely opposite to what we are or I am proposing, but this line of argumentation holds value because of these reasons. Finally, draw your conclusion stated in the strongest way possible. So, this is the Toulmin system. Now, this is how you organize your work, and then you wrap up and then you move on to your method section. And in the literature review, again your literature review forms the basis for building on the existing knowledge base. So, the literature review really provides the reader with a solid enough reason, with a robust reason to believe that something more could have been done, but was not done for various reasons. Something more could have been done, and then transitions or helps the reader transition from this background, from whatever has been said, to what you have done, to the story of how you have created new knowledge, which is the section on methods, the methodology section. So, that is what we will be talking about in the next class. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you.